Hey everyone, so this is Chicago Med, Season 3, Episode 6, Ties That Bind. Um, I'm trying to think, there was kind of like multiple medical storylines with multiple people, or with the same people. Like there was two with Troy, I think, and like two with Will or something like. I don't know. This is weird. So I think I'm just gonna go chronologically this time. So Will, um, was talking to Rhodes and asking about Robin, and then all of a sudden, he gets a text, and he's rushing out of the hospital. Um, so when he leaves, he walks down the street to his father's department store that his father owns, and finds out Robin was trying to steal items. So, and then goes back to the hospital where April and Natalie have a patient where named Mrs. Buckley or Miss Buckley, and her daughter Nancy is describing how she found her mother on the floor after hearing her screaming. So then goes back to Rhodes, who thanks his father for not um, calling the cops, but they end up in an argument where his father suggests that he get rid of Robin. So it goes back to Maggie, who's upset about the fact that there aren't enough nurses going around, and that even though she's a charge nurse, I'm not sure exactly what a charge nurse is. Um, I guess I do. I mean, you see her, fielding patients to the doctors and nurses. So, I guess that's what she's technically supposed to do, or that's her job description. And now she's having to do all the IV bag, like she's having to treat patients when she normally doesn't have to treat patients. So she's playing a good one, and Goodwin's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. So, um, anyway, so Will gets this patient named Arlo Littman, who's 20 years old, delusional, and combative. So he asks for a psych consult. When Reese and Charles get there, Charles asks if she's alright with treating the patient. She says she is, but she hasn't been for a while, clearly. So it then goes to Will getting another patient named Jessie Rowe, who's in her mid 20s, has shortness of breath, and abdominal pain. Her husband reveals that they have been doing IVF to get pregnant, and so Will, tries gets some initial scans, and hear some congestion around her lungs, but thinks that might be due to the IVF. So they're keeping her there just to make sure that it doesn't get any worse. Troy gets the patient, Mr. Janacek, who has cut himself, and Janacek says he's been, he's been rather clumsy lately, and stuff like that. So Troy does a quick exam, but concludes that he's fine. Janacek doesn't feel like Troy's taking him seriously, and that he is just like the rest of the doctors that he has seen, um, and says that he's feeling crummy. So, like he's been feeling crummy all the time. So Troy decides to get some more um, test done. So, anyway, so it goes back to Nancy, and Natalie, who's just about to discharge I think it's just about to discharge her mother, but then Nancy starts to uh, she's been exhibiting, abdominal pain herself this entire time, and so Natalie admits her. Um, Rhodes then comes up to Reese, and he aggressively gets he aggressively talks to her, saying that Robin needs a full workup with scans and labs. Okay, so I mean, I get he's feeling some type of way, but like, calm your damn male titties down. Like, come on, calm your damn male titties down, because it's really, I mean, it's not her fault that she's not being truthful about the fact that she's stealing shit. How is anybody supposed to know that she's stealing something if she's lying about it? I mean, no one's really to blame but her about not coming forward with that. I mean, because she's been doing it for a while. Because even Charles brought it up later in the episode that, you know, that she's been going on for a while. Like, so how is she supposed to, she's supposed to be a mind reader now? Like, just calm down. This is exactly why women have fucking trust issues with men in this country, because they act fucking aggressive for no fucking reason. I mean, I get that you're upset and concerned, but it's not Sarah. It's not Reese's fault that Robin refused to say anything about her stealing. Because she knew because Robin knew what the fuck was gonna happen. She knew she was gonna get fucking looks of fucking concern and frustration if she admitted that shit. So don't blame Reese for your girlfriend's lack of fucking communication. Anyway, moving on. Will informs Jessie and her husband that she is indeed pregnant, but her blood is becoming hyper-thickened due to a condition called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which happens when the IVF treatment has an adverse reaction to her natural estrogen. Will then, starts to monitor her so she doesn't clot or throw a clot. Troy then gets another patient, 33-year-old Barry, who was found in the park with a head laceration. Come to think of it, I don't think we even see Barry anymore after this. I think it's like the only time we see him. So, anyway, Natalie finds out Nancy does in fact have appendicitis, because Natalie thought it was initially appendicitis when she was talking to her. But Nancy was like, well, I had my appendix out when I was 14. And Natalie definitely has proof that it's appendicitis. And Nancy also, most likely, unbeknownst to her, had her tubes tied. Now I'm thinking, at that point, I was thinking that her mom made her have the appendicitis at 14 secret. Like, she had her daughter secretly have a tubal ligation because of the fact that it was under the guise of the fact that she was too wild or too hard to control, and so therefore she said that she told Nancy was going to get appendicitis done, or appendectomy done, but then actually had her tubes tied. And Natalie and Nick will go to tell her, and Nancy refuses to believe it, and then her appendix ruptures, so she immediately goes to surgery immediately. So while she's in surgery, Nancy and April go to Nancy's mother's room and reveals that Nancy's mother reveals she got Nancy's tubes tied because she was wild at 14, and the judge gave her a choice to either keep Nancy out of jail by giving her tubal ligation, or she will be in jail. And at that time, like I said, Nancy had been wild. Her mother reveals that Nancy had been wild at that time. She wasn't doing any, she was getting into a lot of trouble, and she felt that Nancy would have gotten pregnant by 15 and had to drop out of school and all that. So I called it. I was like, there's no way, no. Couldn't, nope. Okay, so it goes then back to Reese talking with Arlo, who says his professor, who apparently worked for the CIA, exposed him to radium. And so eventually Reese is getting the restraints off of Arlo, and while she and Doris are doing that, she starts freaking out because he keeps doing these scared jumps and shit, and it's just anyway. So Will then, asks Rose for a consult for Jessie, and she has a blood clot near or around her heart, in or around her heart. So he does this heparin drip thing so that they won't have to do surgery. goes back to Troy telling Janacek that he's fine after running tests. Janacek says that he'll just leave. Troy won't take him seriously, so Troy decides to get a neural consult. Maggie goes to Goodwin, and Maggie's like, well, the people who bring them patients with insurance, or the people who bring patients to them, the paramedics, aren't bringing them patients with insurance. They aren't being motivated to do so. So Maggie has this idea as to what, as to a way to have the paramedics bring the patients with insurance to them. Though we don't know it we aren't told what it is just yet. Troy then gets worried that there's nothing neurologically wrong with Janacek. Charles then confronts Rhodes about Robin's shoplifting. And tries to tell him that he's taken on too much by being her full-time caregiver and all that, because as you see, he keeps leaving work in the middle of his shift, so he can't keep doing that. So, but he won't listen to it. So, during the procedure for Jesse, Jesse's stats start to drop, and so they take her to do surgery. And then during the surgery, her heart starts to fail. So Charles visits Robin at home, and she feels like she's become a burden to Connor and someone to be pitied, and she just wants to feel like a person again. Jesse pulls through surgery. Natalie plans on telling Nancy her mother had her tubes tied unknowingly. April doesn't think that Natalie should do that, but personally, I think she should. I think Natalie should, because of the fact that, like, I mean, yeah, she was wild as a child, but I mean, in the long run, you're denying her something that she might want later on. I mean, if she decides to want to have her tubes tied later on in life, to not want kids because she doesn't actually want kids, that's her right to do so. But to deny her the option of having kids later on that she wants naturally is not up to her. I mean, yeah, she was in a bind, but I mean, still. Anyway, so Troy then asks Sarah to examine Janacek, and upon hearing that she's a psychiatrist, he gets agitated, and so therefore pepper sprays him. So Reese then gets suspended until further notice. Natalie then tells Nancy of the tubal ligation. Rhodes goes back home and finds Robin has left. And we find out that Janacek's labs post-spraying came up clean, except that they noticed that he had an enlarged spleen, like a very enlarged spleen. And the reason for that is because he has this genetic disorder called Gaucher's disease, which has symptoms he was describing the entire time. So they decide to surgically remove his spleen and treat him with enzymes periodically. So Rose then confronts Charles about Robin leaving, and says that he will, do whatever it takes to get her back there, whether it's hiring a private investigator to find her and bring her back, whatever. Honestly, I'm okay with this. Okay with them breaking up like this, because I thought they were gonna break up. Because later on, like several episodes later, he was gonna find out that she was shoplifting. And sorry, it's very windy outside right now. I don't know why. It's very windy. I apologize. And anyway, so I was figuring that they were gonna break up because of the fact that several episodes later, she was gonna find out she was shoplifting, and she promised she was gonna stop. but then didn't, and so he broke up with her because of it. But I'm okay with this too. Just as long as like he doesn't go running into the arms of Becker, I'm fine with it. So, so this last scene is of Charles going to comfort Reese, and she's wondering what she has done. So, I mean, that's basically an entire episode. I'm not gonna do any predictions for next week. I mean, my prediction from last week was wrong, so I thought it was gonna be someone different who was gonna get suspended. Personally, I thought it was gonna be Natalie. I mean, that's just me. So until next week, I will see you guys later.